Greetings from St. Mary Bansdale, and welcome to everyone to the homily of 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time. This weekend, the church in Australia, Solemnity, celebrate the feast of St. Mary Mackillop. When I was the first year student in Corpus Christi College, the seminary of Victoria and Tasmania, I had the chance to visit to Penola in South Australia with my first year group at a pilgrimage following to step of St. Mary Mackillop life, who were called in her religious life of Mary of the Cross, was the first established in Penola. I have learned some new experiences from this pilgrimage. Particularly, I was impressed on the life of Saint Mary Mackillop, for she made education for the poor children, and she developed compassionate social welfare throughout Australia in 19th century. Her life and her work were inspired for my vocation to the priesthood. We are always having our own suffering and trouble in life, and the vulnerable are always around us. As Jesus mentioned in the Gospel reading today, each day has enough trouble of its own. In this moment of the coronavirus pandemic, put us under a lot of pressure. In the world, many victims are suffering the consequences of the viral illness. Many doctors and nurses are working hard to care for the patients. There are more than half the Australian population are living in isolation condition now. In Victoria, we have been plunged into the sixth time of lockdown. Many of us are financially worried. Our job may be get into trouble. The elderly are isolated in loneliness, and the young cannot go to school. Some questions for the moment to consider: how could we cope with this pandemic? How will we manage our future? It is hard to answer with this circumstance, but it is a good time for us to encounter the question, God's providence in our life. We are called to trust in God's love and care for His creatures. Let us discern our way forward through the lens of faith. COVID-19 disrupted our lives, but it is a time for us to consider the grace of love of God in our lives. Likewise, Saint Mary Mackillop, who was willing to trust not in material possession, but she embraced God's love for the poor, and she boldly trusted in God to use her life and gifts in service others. We hear in the Gospel reading today, Jesus advised to his disciples, I am telling you not to worry about your life, what you are to eat, nor your body and how you are to clothe it. In this difficult circumstance of the pandemic, instead of becoming frustrated, despair, complain, or blamed, we should be humble to put our lives in God's hand, and we may pay our attention to those who are in need, that we could to help them. May we imitate the life and work of Saint Mary Mackillop, who were generosity to the needy, hospitality to strangers, and support to the suffering. Saint Mary Mackillop, pray for us.